I have a highly unqualified opinion that I want to share with you, and it is that the Lamborghini Murcielago is the best V12 Lamborghini that will ever exist, and I want to explain my thoughts. Let's get to it. Okay, let's talk about what defines the best V12 Lamborghini. What is a V12 Lamborghini supposed to represent? Well, I believe that one of the reasons why this is such a popular, attractive, kind of lustful segment of the exotic car industry, because the V12 Lamborghini is an example of contrast. And here's what I mean by that. The V12 Lamborghini has to be both very capable. It has to be able to actually perform as a supercar, and it has to be impractical. It has to not be able to perform any sort of truly useful purpose. It has to be dramatic, which means that it has to be captivating and yet somehow also mysterious, but then it also has to be boisterous. It has to be loud. It has to be noticed. And that doesn't make any sense either. It has to be something where you don't really know who is in it, but you do know what it is. Yes, there's plenty of famous people who have driven these cars, but they're not anymore. Nowadays, a lot of the people that have V12 Lamborghinis are not celebrities. They are people who are specifically trying to not be known and yet drive an extremely expensive and noticeable car. A V12 Lamborghini, in my opinion at least, has to be kind of sharp-edged. Back in the day, as a pop culture icon, a Murcielago especially was a vehicle that heroes used to get from A to B, or villains, very quickly. And so it had to be something that could maneuver through whatever road it was on very quickly, and a sharp-edged exotic performance car could do that. And yet, although it's supposed to be very good at moving itself around, it also has to be louder than it is fast. A V12 Lamborghini has to be very good at being fast. They're all very fast cars, but they also have to be very announcing of their presence. They have to be super loud, they have to shoot flames, they have to have doors that go up, and those two things don't really go together either. And so that's my thought, is that the V12 Lamborghini is this perfect synthesis of contrast, where it has to be a car that is somehow both extremely capable and extremely impractical. It has to be loud and also quietly mysterious. It has to be sharp-edged, and yet it also has to be so entertaining that it attracts attention from everybody. And that's a hard balance to strike. And I believe that every other V12 Lamborghini that has existed gets struck out and doesn't strike this balance as well as the Murcielago does. So let's go through the full lineage. The Miura, it's too old. It's a vintage car at this point, and it feels like a car from the 60s because it is. And that completely eliminates it from any sort of sharp-edged, fast, entertaining car, because it's so much more of like the Italian Riviera, and you think of it as this like, okay, Ferruccio designed this one and it's very pasta. And in my opinion, that isn't what a V12 Lamborghini has become in its existence. As these cars have continued to evolve, the Miura is set aside as something that is more appreciated by vintage car collectors than the sort of outlandish, exotic, and strange people that tend to own the newer V12 Lamborghinis. Next, the Countach. This is a lot of my parents' childhood's poster car, and I know plenty of people that aspired to own a Countach, and they bought it and it was everything that they ever hoped for. But if you talk to people who actually own it, and specifically the person you hear talk about their ownership experience quite a lot is Doug DeMuro, he talks about it being slow. And although he absolutely loves it, and it puts a huge smile on his face every time he drives it, and he thinks it's his favorite car that he owns, he also acknowledges that, yeah, it is a difficult car to use. It has a heavy clutch. It is not that fast. It's carbureted and doesn't always start the way you expect it to. That part of the personality of a V12 Lamborghini didn't really need to persist as these cars continue to evolve and modernize. And so from my perspective as a millennial, I look at the Countach as still a little bit too old and soft and doesn't have the level of performance that we're talking about, even at the time, that really suits what I am referring to here with the perfect V12 Lamborghini. The Diablo. The Diablo actually almost could be close in competition with the Murcielago as the best V12 Lamborghini, but it went through so many evolutions in its life that really dramatically changed what that car represented. It didn't have a cohesive experience that fits the bill through its entire lifespan. It started out as a slow, rear-wheel drive, soft, original Diablo. Then it got all-wheel drive and it became clunky and harder to use, and the Roadster was just not that good looking of a car. Then they brought out the SE30, which was more of a race car. It was a pretty exciting, more stripped down, faster, more powerful, bit more spicy version of the car, but it was a complete 180 from the VT that came right before it. Then you have the SV, which is my favorite Diablo, and it took it from that sort of race car thing with the SE30 and more mass produced it. There's some 200 or 300 Diablo SVs in the world, and that makes it a relatively common Diablo as opposed to other examples. And it is, as a result, a very hard-edged, more race car experience that didn't have that same sort of capable, mysterious, and impractical use to it. It's like so much of a 90s supercar that it didn't have that usability that the newer cars have. And then you have the 6.0. This is the closest that you can get to a Murcielago experience, and so if the Diablo was only 6.0s, then we might have a more difficult conversation to have here. But considering the level of evolution that occurred over the Diablo's life, it just is not cohesive enough to be able to rate it all that high as a V12 Lamborghini. Let's skip the Murci and move on to the Aventador. The Aventador is strictly clout. As a result, it is disqualified. It is not something that anybody who actually likes the car, except for the handful of special versions that exist, it's not something that people buy for the car itself. People buy it for the image that it represents. Much more so than any other V12 Lamborghini, the Aventador represents the emergence of social media and the shooting flames and the Gintani exhausts and everything else that comes with the car spotters that exist in the world today will always love an Aventador more than anything else. And that means that it cannot possibly fit into the contrast that I think that a V12 Lamborghini has to have. And then to current day, the Revuelto. Everyone who I have talked to about the Revuelto thinks it's numb. They think that the hybrid experience really does change the way that the car feels, and they feel that given all the sound insulation and technology that exists in all these modern cars today, that it just does not have that same sort of visceral experience that the older cars have. And that is very important to have as well. It's a contrast where the drama that the car has and the capability and the hard-edgedness that I was talking about is something that you really have to feel. That's where I feel like things like a dual clutch transmission or anything that makes a car numbed down because of technology and because of capability to a degree beyond what you feel you're in control of as a mechanical element of the car, makes it not really a good experience. And so from everyone who I've talked to who's driven Revueltos, that is what they've said. But now I want to talk about the Murcielago, and I want to go back to the criteria that I put out at the beginning. These cars have to be both capable and impractical. The Murcielago is a daily driver reliable car. It's not carbureted, it's not temperamental, it doesn't have any weird quirks where, oh yeah, sometimes it just gets in a mood and doesn't want to start or whatever. It starts every single time. It is extremely reliable and predictable in its performance. That car makes a ton of sense to actually be able to use on a regular basis. But it's hugely impractical. You cannot see anything out of that car. It is massively wide, it is extremely low, it has a cramped interior, and it means that you can't use it in any sort of reasonable situation and think that you're gonna do it normally. It is a sharp-edged car. It is actually very good at getting from A to B. You can drive that car really, really fast, confidently, and yet it does everything that you would want a Murcielago, a V12 Lamborghini, to do. It's difficult to park. The doors go straight up in the air. It has a very loud exhaust. It is something that will get you noticed everywhere you go, and it isn't going to feel like a scalpel when you show up to your destination, even if it felt like a scalpel the whole way you were on the road. And lastly, the Murci gets you noticed. It is a hugely recognizable car that people sometimes mistake for a Huracan or an Aventador, but nevertheless, it is a car that people know, people see, and they smile. People give you thumbs up as you're driving down the road, but at the same time, you can be a mysterious figure. I think back to the Transporter 2, The Dark Knight, movies where people in suits who fight crime and bad guys drive this car in a heroic way with the windows up, tinted. They get shit done in these cars. They are useful tools that get them from A to B, and they get to discard it at the end of their adventure. It gets in a crash, it blows up the Miami airport sign, whatever happens in Transporter 2. It is such a cool car, and the blend of modern usability and drama and mystery combined with, and I hate this word, but I gotta use it in this situation, the analog feel of that a little bit of pasta. You gotta have that. And the smell of Italian leather and this very dramatic car that everywhere I've ever parked it, when I look at it, it takes my breath away. It's a beautiful car with all the drama that you could need. It's noticeable, it's fast, it's loud, it just checks all the boxes. It is the best V12 Lamborghini, and you won't prove me wrong. And that's what I got for this week's video. Till next week, stay driven.